Well, we've made it to the last one. Thanks a lot, everybody, for joining this one, and people are still filing in. Um, I don't know how many times we've been in the same room, Doug, if at all.
We
Is that
haven't.
possible?
We
Weird,
haven't met, not face to face.
weird. Well, that will happen in Adelaide at our forum this year. And so I've been Doug, last year, his presentation, he went from working at a big nonprofit and he took the leap to start his own practice, which has been really a success. Having, I think, is it right to say you already have a wait list?
No, I don't have a wait list because I'm not very good at managing one. So I just say I'm full.
You just say you're full. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Um, so anyway, I'm going to pass over to Doug, who's going to talk about some of the ethos from Gippsland Adventure Therapy, which is a really cool model. And I think there's a lot to take away from these ideas. So Doug, thanks for joining us on your holiday. I'm sure this is a bit of reprieve from screaming children. And you're outside, which is really nice.
Yep. For now, I hope. It was raining before. We'll see how we go. Well, thanks for having me. Just before I start, I would like to acknowledge the First Nations people of the country that I'm on, and I'm going to give it a go and pronounce the country. I've been moving around a lot, so I haven't had a lot of practice, but I would definitely like to acknowledge the Bundjalung, Jambar, Nagur, and Yegel people as the traditional owners of the country that I'm sitting on at the moment, which is Yamba, New South Wales, midway through a holiday. And I'd pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging, and recognize any First Nations people from any country who might be zooming in with us today. So what do I do, Will? Do I just press play? Because I pre-recorded this thinking I wasn't going to be available.
Yeah, just go for it.
Cool. Well, welcome to my presentation, which is named It's Not My Adventure, It's Yours. And we'll explain why, I guess, in a second. And I think, I don't know how you've run other presentations, Will, but I'm pretty open for like interruptions in between slides and questions, and we'll go with that, or what?
Yeah, for sure. We'll just wing it. So if people want to use the chat box to engage, that's great. It's your self-directed learning. So learn the way you want to.
All right, here we go. Let's hope it works.
Hi, I'm Doug Moczynski, the founder and key facilitator at Gippsland Adventure Therapy. I use positive relationships, engaging outdoor activities, and contact with nature to increase young people's mental health and well-being. In this presentation, we're going to unpack some key elements to providing an outdoor service that is emotionally supportive, it's inclusive, and it can create therapeutic outcomes. You're going to see me filming on some of my favourite locations on Gunai Kurnai country. I really hope that you find this presentation engaging and useful. And next time that you find yourself standing in front of a participant, you might pause and think to yourself, it's not my adventure, it's yours.
I bet you're all pretty impressed after that. That's probably as good as it's going to get. So maybe I introduce a quick little bit about the model that I use. I've got 3 rules when I run my service with young people, and they're very complicated rules, very, very strict on them. And that is to be fun, safe, and useful with everything that we do. And we talk about that with each young person before doing a session. Most of my sessions are one-on-one, and I work with young people with disability through our National Disability Insurance Scheme here in Australia. I also work with traumatized youth that are dealing with the effects of developmental and complex trauma, as well as young people that don't have a label attached really, or any sort of external funding, and just been referred to me privately by their parents because they need a bit of extra engagement, especially since the pandemic. So I guess my quick little background for me is I came from an adventure guiding background, working for corporates and school camps. And then I went and worked at a not-for-profit running an adventure therapy program, but it was probably a bit of an old school approach where it was more of a get out and walk them until they cry and then build them up again. And over the years, I've been on a pretty steep learning curve about maybe what I believe to be a better approach. And I guess that's where the shifting our lens on what adventure can be comes into it. And the fact that it's not my adventure, it's theirs. And it doesn't matter what I think gets great outcomes. It really matters what works for them. And I guess it doesn't have to be as hardcore as you might think. So moving on.
Really, really quick. One of the things because Doug has been doing this feedback informed treatment shit I haven't shut up about yet. And Doug has been doing it. And at first, just to throw Doug a bit under the bus, he called me, he said, I can't figure out, like, a lot of these kids just want to have fun. And so I don't know how I start going, hey, also, we're going to fill out these boring measures and outcome measures. And that's where we landed on in a just a random conversation over the phone, that why don't we add useful to safe and fun? And so it has to be, so it was first just, we have to have fun and we have to keep each other physically and psychologically safe. And then we were thinking, where can we fit in something else? And then useful is a nice word because it doesn't say therapeutic or, doesn't say a whole lot for working with young people. And so it just means it has to be a little bit beneficial in some way. There's a reason why we're doing this. And so I really like that. So back over to you, Doug.
Thanks, Will. And thanks too, because you've been pretty pivotal in this model. I didn't think I had a model until Will said, actually, you do. But anyway, let's go over to this amazing, this one's a bit tricky to hear, so bear with me, but there's a very professional video production we've got going on here.
Yeah, the sound on this one isn't as good, but it's okay. We'll get through it.
And it's thinking. Oh, please don't die now. What if I go back and forwards? Seamless.
We could skip this one, see if another one works.
Yeah, we'll go back to this. So first rule, fun. It's got to be engaging and client focused. And really, because if it's not fun, kids aren't interested, are they? No.
Do you want me to share it?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, just stop sharing. I'll have it up.
And maybe we can go back to shifting your lens.
Yep. Sorry, team, bear with me. This is what happens when you
zoom in from the mid New South Wales coast.
Oh shit.
Present. That's it.
Okay, we're good?
We're good.
What are we doing here, Doug?
Over the course of my career, I've made many amazing memories. I've worked with close to 1,000 vulnerable young people, and I've learned so much along the way. I've come to understand that for many years, we've been attempting to facilitate outdoor education sessions and therapy to young people rather than with young people. Programs might advertise facilitating evidence-based models to achieve outcomes to work towards key educational criteria. Maybe it's a 10-day expedition where participants learn skills to light a fire and construct shelter. Or maybe it's a 5-step model to achieving therapeutic goals. It's really important for us to be informed by evidence. And it's also okay for us to advertise that we do this. I mean, I do. But with all of this, is there choice? Is there opportunity for participants to decide what is best for them and how it's safest for them to show up as their authentic self? In the past, we've too often operated with a break and we'll build a mindset, believing that natural consequences and experiencing hardship will lead to positive outcomes. This might be by building resilience and skill mastery. It might be by learning what you're capable of. This could be true for many. They might cry, experience frustration and anger, get cold, get hungry, but at the end of it all, they might look back at it as one of the best experiences that gives them really positive outcomes. Look, they might even think it was life-changing. So that's one side of the coin, but how do we give voice to the other? What about the ones who leave not having enjoyed themselves, who maybe felt overwhelmed, or unsafe, or unable to connect with their peers or their leaders? Many of the young people on these programs have never been camping before, or hiking, or carried a pack. They have to learn on the go how to set up a camp, how to sleep outdoors in a new environment with new sounds, new people, without their usual supports or routines. There's new foods. They have to cook on a campfire or a stove. Let's not forget, you've got to go to the toilet in the bush too. It's so encouraging to know that our outdoor industry, in the education space, but also in the helping and therapeutic sectors, are moving towards more inclusive disciplines. There's mounting research that shows us to get these positive outcomes, we don't really have to work quite so hard. The Gippsland Adventure Therapy Service uses a feedback structure that helps us to honour our participants' experience. We make each interaction fun, safe and useful. Most importantly, we create an inclusive space and hold in high regard an environment of absolute safety. We empower our participants to articulate what they need and what's helpful to them.
You're on mute, Doug.
Sorry, I lost my mouse. Found it again. It's so professional. The key thing, or the key takeaway that I probably wanted people to understand about what I do is I'm super passionate about making the outdoors inclusive and not making it not a cookie cutter, but like not a narrow scope about who can attend and who can gain positive outcomes from it. I really wanted to make something that was super specialized and tailored, so that if someone came to me with particular needs that meant that they couldn't do a lot of things, then I'd be able to create something around them using these 3 rules that made it really great for them. So fun. Let's talk about fun. Go for it, Will. Please work. Please work. Please work. Please work.
Let's talk about fun. Fun. Because if it ain't fun, who's going to show up for it? All of us work better when we're having fun, especially young people. Fun creates opportunity for connection. An authentic connection can really help people work through hard things. It's not about making them carry a pack. We're doing an abseil because abseil builds resilience. If you make your sessions engaging and fun, your young people that are working with you are more likely to follow close behind you. And you know what? When people are having fun, then will quickly find their way to safety. And that's what's important. So research by Dr. Scott Miller from the International Centre for Clinical Excellence. Now that shows us that engagement directly affects outcomes. So, what's the takeaway from this very short clip on fun? Make it fun. Make it engaging. If you're not having fun, neither are the kids. So, yeah, be authentic, because no one does you better than you, but make it fun and enjoy yourself. I mean, this is our office. Doesn't get much better than this. Cool. So go have fun, people.
Short and
Just
sweet.
bobbing around in a kayak.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that even though I went to a fair bit of effort to like film in some pretty cool places, most of my sessions aren't epic. Like, you know, fun is riding a bike around a BMX pump track or carving spoons. Like it, yeah, which, you know, as long as they feel safe doing it, which brings us to the next slide. Thanks, Will.
Mhm. Rainforest.
We all have a window of tolerance when it comes to stress and fear. We don't develop efficiently or heal very well when we're constantly stepping outside of that. So to take a trauma-informed approach, if trauma happens when people are denied control over their body, then healing can happen and development can happen when we give them as much control as that we can safely give. Safety is more than physical safety. We as facilitators, we must honour our participants' emotional safety. We need to give them agency and choice over their level of participation in each of our sessions. We can give them permission to say no. In fact, we can celebrate their no, and by placing more importance on their ability to advocate for their own sense of safety, we can reduce the amount of stress and adventure activity might cause them. I mean, really, who cares if they go abseiling or if they do a walk or if they go paddling down a river or if they never even get out of the car? What we should really care about is if they feel safe and supported throughout their time with us, then that's where we're more likely to get really good outcomes.
But I might add to that. I say give them agency, but Dassie from Melbourne pointed out the other week that people agency shouldn't be something that we give to be. It should be something good. Sorry, I'll start again. Agency shouldn't be something that we give to people. Agency should be something that we honor and recognize in people and respect their agency over their mind and their body. And like pretty semantic words, but it actually, I thought, yeah, that's actually absolutely true. And with young people, especially young people that receive a lot of support from, you know, professional services, perhaps maybe feel like they're getting told what to do a lot. And I think it's something that I'm really passionate about in everything that we do in Gippsland Adventure Therapy. It's done in collaboration with the young people, and as much as possible, letting them steer the ship. Obviously, we've got some pretty clear boundaries about safety, but again, we can collaborate on those boundaries. And when we talk about safety, I talk to them and say, you know, it's really important to me that you can articulate or you can tell me what you need to feel safe, or tell me when you're not feeling safe. But also likewise, I get to tell you when I'm not feeling safe, and that might be because you're doing something dangerous. And then that's how we sort of bring it back in.
That links really well, Doug, to what we talked about this morning with Graham, about this idea of human rights, which is not something I am at all well versed in. But one thing Graham said recently that that resonated with me is we talk about dignified approaches to adventure, and everything has dignity and purpose. So our practice either enhances the dignity someone already has or diminishes it. And so we want to make sure, like you brought up pooping in the woods, how can we help people do that in a dignified way that doesn't make us feel awkward?
And
take
so away. Sorry, mate.
No, I'm just going to say it's about preserving people's dignity that they already have, instead of thinking that it's something we give them. So like dignity is afforded to people when they already have it. So the only thing we can do is go backwards in dignity.
That's right.
We go for
And
the
when-
next one? Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
why not? No, no.
No, go ahead. You say it.
I was just going to say something like, "Oh, fish! That's cool." Sorry, I just saw a fish jump. I was going to say that continuously reminding ourselves that it's not like our agenda and our plan is not necessarily the young person's, or very rarely is it the young person's agenda or plan, and we need to, celebrate them and where they're at, and make sure that we're the ones shifting and pivoting, as our friend Rick Webb talks about, that we need to pivot. And then that way I think we're gonna more often get it right, and more often make it more useful and safe and fun for them.
Yeah.
Now you can go to the next one.
Yep. Taking notes.
Oh yeah, this is some clever filming, which didn't quite work.
Okay, let's talk about being useful. Everything that we do should have intent. Intent to make a person's experience meaningful, to show participants an example of safety, and give them control. At Gippsland Adventure Therapy, we offer a tailored experience, often in a one-to-one setting. Short and flexible sessions on a regular occurrence can be a more inclusive approach. We have to manage young people's choice, families' expectations and funding limitations, and we have to find a balance and work towards what is useful. So as an example, I work with a very young person that's been given a diagnosis of ASD. They find it hard to remain regulated and sit still, and working in a group is extremely challenging for them. Their mum is on call 24/7 to help regulate and manage their school and appointment life. We're working collaboratively with mum and dad, other professionals and the young person. We've come up with a useful program. We've established a routine where we spend 3 hours on a private bush block pulling up weeds, pushing over dead saplings from a past bushfire, and inspecting the roots of fallen trees. To begin with, I wasn't sure that what we were doing was meaningful or useful, and I really struggled to remain present and engaged. But I had to keep reminding myself that it wasn't my adventure that we were having, it was theirs. It was actually something that they really needed and something that they found really useful. So recently, this young person was going through a bit of a tough patch, and they were actually able to articulate to their parents that they really needed to go and push trees and spend time with Doug. So we've increased the regularity of their sessions and from their school to say that they're more regulated and present for days after a session. And even their psychologist has said that they can reduce the amount of sessions that they're doing with the young person. So our next step is to try and work on strategies to replicate the grounding and regulating effect that these sessions have, and implement them into other parts of this young person's life. Useful.
I forgot I put that little extra bit on the end.
That was nice. Like a little stroll through Gippsland.
Yeah, absolutely. This is my favorite bit. So yeah, useful. I think I don't know. I've got nothing to add there. Will, do you have more to add? You're pretty smart.
Sometimes it's really hard for us to know what is useful and what isn't. And so the best thing we can do is ask what's useful and what's not, and take it. It can be tempting to get defensive when someone says something isn't useful, but instead it's also a sign that they're engaged and want something to be useful. So it's always nice when we do get a bit of negative feedback. It actually, instead of someone saying, yeah, it's fine, and then we hear later we've had 8 adventures and life still stinks. If we say, oh, I don't know how this is helping me at home, that's important for us to talk about. And so being unuseful is okay. Not being useful is okay as long as we know it. And that way we can do our best to try and fix it, because we can't be everything to everybody. And so that can be really important.
That's a good point.
So do you want to say where this comes from, or does the video do that for you?
I can't remember. Um, so I'll give you a quick little preempt. So my wife is not an outdoor person at all. She loves the outdoors, but she's not an ADHD adrenaline junkie like myself. So when we were young, and I would try and take her places and take her and do her cool stuff because I thought, I'm really going to impress her with this sort of stuff. Maybe I can't remember how long we've been together. Maybe 15 years. I finally learned that no one really cares about that stuff, except for the people like me that get a lot out of it. So again, having a plan is good, but not forcing people into your plan is even better. And there's no point traumatizing somebody to do something which you think will be good for them. So how do we know what's good? We don't know what's good for them until we ask, as you say, Will. And the only way that we can do that is by connecting with them first. So my tagline on the side of my car says well-being, connection, and nature. And it's like, whatever we're doing, it's got to be good for you. And part of that is that we need to have a positive relationship, myself and the young person, to make sure it's safe. And then to make sure that I've created an environment where they feel safe to tell me what works for them, rather than pushing an agenda on them or pushing a program that I've pre-designed onto them. Making sure that I understand what will be safe and what will be useful for them, but I can offer them activities, and they can opt in or they can choose to change the plan.
Yeah,
I think the video probably says it better. I practiced.
Okay. Well, we spoke this morning. Nevin popped into the workshop with Graham, and we were talking about, and a few other people were there as well. We were talking about how even the terminology of program can be troubling, that we've set out a program for you to be programmed by the program. And so it removes it can take away from our view of experience, that how is this person experiencing what we're doing? And after all, most of us are fans of experiential learning. And so you have to, the more we control the experience, the less opportunity there is for that, unintentional learning that can happen. So absolutely, let's roll to nobody cares if you abseil. As Doug is abseiling.
Yeah, you picked up on that, right?
Mm-hmm. Getting a spinning wheel of death.
Oh, come on. This is my favorite.
In almost all outdoor education and resilience building programs in Australia, you're going to find the age-old abseil activity, or rappelling. Standing on a cliff or a wall, 10, 20, sometimes 30 meters up in the air, generations of young people have been given the opportunity to build resilience through sliding down a rope. They've had to entrust their entire physical and emotional safety, usually to an absolute stranger, who's telling them, hey, you should do this. You know what? This is going to be great for you. So by doing this, we've silenced the participant's voice over what they think will be helpful. We've also unwittingly denied them choice and control by telling them that we know what's best for them. In all our sessions at Gippsland Adventure Therapy, it's never about actually doing the activity. It's about providing an opportunity for participants to advocate for what they need. We pivot where needed to build an experience around what a participant finds engaging, fun, safe, and useful. So, at the end of the day, it's not really about abseiling. We can take you to a beautiful natural space, support you to engage in it in a way that works for you, and also help you feel safe so that you can experience something meaningful and useful, and hopefully new. That may happen to be an abseil, or it might happen to be looking for fossils at the base of the cliff. This cliff is a limestone cliff, it's an ancient coral reef. We can do both these things in the one space if we're prepared enough, if we've got enough knowledge about our local country, and if we're flexible enough in our programming to allow the staff and the high quality staff that can be aware of what people need, break off where they need to be, and help people just engage in a space and not put any pressure on the activity. So maybe instead of saying, hey, you know what, you should abseil, this will be good for you, maybe we should say, hey, this is a really cool cliff. I've got some ropes in the car. Do you think maybe we should abseil? What do you guys reckon? If we approach adventure with caution when facilitating experiences with young people, or anybody, we're far more likely to be helpful and far less likely to cause any harm. Now, to quote my friend Will Dobud, what a wonderful opportunity for someone to say no to abseiling. What a horrific opportunity to have a victim of sexual assault say no, and then we say it's about getting you out of your comfort zone. Abseiling will help with this.
I love that. I love that one. I was joking with Graham when we were in Norway, and I said I just don't understand the infatuation with abseiling. Like, it's like, just go climbing. And Graham had a good response, but I joked with him and I said, let's just unpack the metaphors of this physical activity: going backwards into the abyss, letting go, going deeper into the hole, moving backwards. Anyway, I'm being a jerk because
No, it's true though. Like, especially no, I mean, everyone's different, so you just don't know. But I mean, when you're abseiling, you have less control. So if we're trying to give young people or people as much control over their experience, throwing them off a cliff straight up probably works for some, but I'm guessing there's a lot of people where they're like, hell no. So I often, on this particular cliff, I go to a lot. If they're keen, I'll throw a rope over and we could try some rock climbing. And there's some amazing fossils in this cliff. I probably didn't explain it so well. Like, it's all coral reef. And they can climb up 2 meters and see a fossil. And we start there, and they got their hands on the rock and they're in more control. And we incrementally maybe just do a little bits at a time. But again, back to the whole safety thing, it's about celebrating their no, and Graham talks about it a lot too. And especially if I have a group, I talk about how success for us is you being able to tell us no, or you being able to say how much you want to do. Success for us isn't about getting you down the cliff. We don't care about that. It's just there. That's like the fun thing for some people, but we're just worried about you feeling happy out here.
Yeah, that's right. And one of the nice things that Graham correctly said was, one of the things is you can tell if a young person's approaching the edge and just doing it because they think they're supposed to, and you can see them becoming unregulated because you're next to them and with them. So that's also a really good affordance to abseiling, whereas opposed to climbing, the client disappears and then comes back. And if they're getting unregulated, we're not there to be in proximity with them.
I think the key is, whatever you do, just be attuned to the people you're doing it with and move slowly, and if it's a group, have enough quality staff. And something Ben Knowles reminded me of was, he goes, Doug, the reason you can be so flexible is because you've got so much competency and skill around the activities that you run. So I think that's another key thing, is whatever you're doing, make sure that the people that are facilitating it are so good at the technical adventure part of it that they can, hold people physically safe more sort of as an automatic thing, and then can focus more on the emotional safety as well, and be flexible and change and pivot where you need to super quick. The wrap up. Let's do it. Oh, that's right. I tried to do something clever and it didn't work, so I had to go back and do something else.
Yeah. I like this. I like being able to see all the places you get to play.
This is one of my favorite places in Gippsland.
Okay, here's the wrap up. What's the takeaway from all of this, and what have we learned? We've been through the importance of making our sessions engaging and fun, supportive and inclusive, which is safe, and meaningful and intentional, which is useful. Probably the most important thing we should be aiming to do in all of our programs is to find that authentic connection with participants. Let's not worry too much about what activity we provide, or maybe the specific structure around how we approach it. Really, it doesn't even have to be in a beautiful natural environment. Sure, we've been filming on some pretty epic places, but in fact, there's nothing at all wrong with doing sessions in a local park, or if your client feels more comfortable with it, in the car park, or in a car whilst you drive. I mean, how many great conversations have you had while driving somebody around? It's about finding what works for each person. I work with a young person where our normal routine is to go to a local bike park and we ride around the pump track all day. And then also another young person that I used to work with, we would just drive for 5 hours because that's what worked for them. At its core, we should always be trying to provide a safe experience where we look to find and nurture a genuine connection with another human. And that is what can make a really big impact. If we also be curious about them and what they say, you'll be amazed at how far this goes. So to wrap it up, make it fun, safe and useful, model asking consent, because that is so important with young people, and celebrate their no to participate. And always remember, it's not my adventure, it's yours.
Thank you.
It was starting to snow when I was doing that.
That's so cool. Thank you for that, Doug, and for all your effort into taking time off to go film all of that. And I think it's awesome to see all the great places and to know that we can take such a simple model of safe, useful, fun to facilitate these experiences. Is there? I think we have about 20 minutes scheduled. We don't have to use it all. But is there any thoughts? Bray says, awesome. Chris says, I appreciate you sharing all the types of locations you take clients. Absolutely. Does anyone else want to chime in with a thought? And we can go bigger than some of you I know have been to a lot of the workshops throughout the week. So if there's also takeaways for you about all of that, that would be really fantastic as well. And feel free to put it in the chat box or unmute. If you do unmute, you have a 1-minute timer. So we can make sure there's space for everyone. So Cass has a question. Doug, what goes on when you're thinking about extreme weather? So we saw some snow there at the end. It also gets super hot. What is your be prepared?
Well, I think that goes into making sure that whatever you're operating, you need to be really comfortable. So I think wherever you take people, whether that's your local park or whether it's a bit more remote, you need to be super prepared. So, the right clothing, spare clothing, emergency equipment, communication, whatever that is, whether that's like some sort of communication emergency device. Be prepared. And just, again, another quote from Rick Webb from New South Wales. He always says that whatever he does, he makes sure that he only is operating at 50% of his sort of technical and physical capacity, so that he knows that he can keep the other person safe. Like, it's not a hard and fast rule, but I really like that view. So yeah, you're just super prepared, be amazing at risk management. and start small. Like if you haven't, like if you don't go outside normally, then just start small. And always, I think, especially with my clientele, so I work with a lot of young people that have sort of an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis or are dealing with complex trauma. So make sure there's an out. Like we never, unless I really understand their ability, we're never far from the car. We can always just go to the car and leave.
Yeah.
Can I add to, at the end there, I did add about modeling consent. I think that's something a bit newer in my service, but that's something I'm super passionate about, where it's over exaggerating asking consent, partly as a risk sort of management strategy, because I do work one-on-one. But I think it's really important in Australia, especially from my experience, especially with young people, is I don't think there's enough teaching about young people and consent and having control over their body. So I do it to the point where they look at me weirdly and go, yeah, of course you can do that, Doug. And that's when I know that, I think I'm doing a good job. So, yeah.
I think that's really a good thing to add too, that consent is also ongoing, that it's a fluid process, that when we talk about someone consenting to going on an adventure with you, are they consenting to that waterfall or that abseil? So it keeps going on. And Laura brought up that the focus on consent was important as well.
Yeah, and like you said, it's ongoing. It's all right. Are you still okay? Sometimes I use like a scaling thing, like, numbers. So 0 is not good. 10 is you're the best ever. And then we pick a safety number. So like, I don't know, like 5 or 4, if we get to that number, we need to be already moving away from whatever it is that's causing stress. I mean, that works with, but again, it's about connecting with the person you're working with. So it's whatever works for them. So some people like that. Some people just tell me. Some people tell me to shut up and stop asking them if it's okay. But then when we do like the feedback informed treatment measures, and later when I'm talking to maybe their caregivers or caseworkers, often I'll get, they really like that Doug always checks in, that Doug never makes me do anything I don't want to do, and that he's always asking me if it's okay. So it's powerful and it's important.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. And Laura brings up another point that is a takeaway about the knowing if the young person is just abseiling because they feel they are supposed to, rather than feeling safe to say no, thank you, I don't want to do this in a dignified way. And that can happen with young people in groups too. They don't want to be the one person who doesn't abseil. So you have to think about, and this goes into really the impact Graham has had on so many of our programming, for many of us who are there. I mean, we were talking about this organization here in South Australia, Operation Flinders. They have abseiling as part of their programming. And I know that they've really focused on implementing a lot of what Graham talks about, which is really stressing and creating a dignified escape from that activity. So have something else to do. So they don't have to just sit there by themselves while everyone else goes and does this adventure and feeling like the odd one out. That's really, really good. And that's hard with programming, but we have to, even though we think about working in a group, at the end of the day, it's a group of individuals who go home and hopefully have all the individuals have a good experience and a good outcome. And that can be hard to notice who's disengaged and who is also feeling like becoming unregulated because they're not able to have a dignified escape from the activity. So that's one of those areas where dignity becomes the cornerstone of our practice, and we can unintentionally have ways that can reduce people's dignity in some ways.
And when I'm running a group session and say it's abseiling, the first thing we'll say, I'll have three staff, so myself and 2 others, so that there's plus, if they bring a grown-up or like a caseworker or a support worker or whatever, so that there's enough of us to be able to split and move and keep everyone safe and engaged. But the first thing we'll say is, hey, today's not about abseiling. none of us care if you abseil. We literally do what I said in the video, and we say today it's about you having fun. It's about you being safe here in that, and however that looks. If you want to abseil, cool. But if you don't, cool. And I say, like, as a group, I'll say, we're going to celebrate your no to abseil. And no one here is going to shame you for not abseiling. We're going to celebrate that because you were able to tell us what you need. And you set it up that way so that hopefully the group then is like, okay, the vibe here is that, you know, we're not going to shame anyone. And I haven't had anyone do it. So, like, I haven't had anyone shame someone for not doing it, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we can't lose the term dignified, dignified escape. So don't let us forget it.
You can coin it.
Yeah, take it and run with it. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Doug, for putting together that great presentation. Doug is a fantastic follow on social media. And so give him a follow and support his work for sure.
Can I just say,
yeah,
Will, in one of the posts you did, you're like an iconic Australian. I think that's probably going a bit far. I didn't think I was iconic.
I was trying to write something funny.
Yeah, it sounded great.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, like, in wrapping up this week, that, you know, some of you have been with us. We have 9 presentations, so it's 9 hours of being together, which is really nice. And it's been really great to have your engagement. And in the chat, if those of you can think of a takeaway for yourselves, I know it's we're all Zoom fatigued out, and it's all Zoom overload for sure. But I'd love to still hear some takeaways as we have engaged with each other this week. And I think for me, one of the things in you know, Graham and I often get busy with talking about making practices safer for people and stuff like that. And I think I always find it really rewarding to go back to basics and remember, as Bray said, why we're doing what we're doing and who's it for, and sharing all the possibilities of adventure. So we started with Stefan, who talked about professionalism and really that we can get really overloaded in the sense of talking about philosophy, theories, models. What degree am I supposed to have? How do I get supervision? And then how do I run safe activities at the same time? There's a lot on our a lot for us to digest as outdoor workers. And I really liked Lynette talking. I guess I'll stop sharing now too. I really enjoyed having Lynette from Canada talk about her grief work in working in a remote Indigenous Northern communities, and it was really nice to see. And we had Margaret talk about how do we actually keep clients physically safe in the outdoors, and some ideas of how do we get an organizational culture that is actually focused on using incident reports the way they're supposed to be used, which is to help us make sure we don't have those incidents happen again, even if they're small near misses. Because sometimes we can go, that wasn't really that big of a deal. I don't think I need to write it because I'll get in trouble by my manager for doing something, you know, forgetting to buckle a kid's life jacket the right way, where there's probably still something to learn in our processes as well. And then we got to Unda from Latvia, my new best adventure therapy friend, who is just incredibly good. And she showed how she used adventure to help prevent burnout, which was amazing. Charlene talked about kids being removed from home and us taking them on adventures. Incredible opportunity with the amount of money that's paid for child protection to use it to give kids adventures. Ben Knowles shared a bit about his research, keeping people safe in the experiences relating to trauma. Mark Kartner's program, it's incredible if you haven't checked that out, about how to work in a multidisciplinary system, but speak everyone's language so they support your work. And then today we had Graham talking about human rights and Doug talking about making sure our adventures are fun, safe, and useful. So we covered a lot of shit over this week, and there's a lot of stuff in the recording and a lot of resources I will send to people, and I'll take a look. But I would guess that now we've had 500 to 600 registrations across all of the workshops, and I will send a PDF with a bunch of resources, and that will have links to all the YouTube. All the recordings will be uploaded to YouTube to watch. And I said to some people, this was something important for me. Is Daniel, we have Chris Russo here, and our good friend Daniel. He called me and he said, "You have to upload everything to YouTube, because if I type in YouTube, all we get are people who call themselves, or if I go to YouTube and I type adventure therapy, the only thing that comes up is people saying adventure therapy stinks and clients with really bad experiences." So it is important that we keep making content and sharing everything for ourselves, to make sure we change that narrative. And as I was reflecting, rambling on this, that the word safety came up in a lot of workshops. And so maybe that's something we can keep going back to and keep looking at that. And Doug is making fun of himself. Well, Doug, we've taken enough of your time on this holiday, and you're outside, which is nice. It's pouring with rain in South Australia on Ghana country. But thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for your engagement throughout the week. I had a lot of fun. I hope it was useful in some ways to you. But thank you everybody, and I look forward to continuing to engage, and you will get a bunch of information sent to you for registering for this. Doug, any final words before you go play with your family?
Just a big thank you to you, mate, for putting all this together. I know it's a lot of work, and for inviting me to come along. Hope it's been fun, definitely safe, and hopefully useful.
Yeah. Yeah. We hope the week has been fun, safe, and useful. Thank you, Bray. Thank you, everybody. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend as well. For those of you that are the Friday people, Chris, sorry, you have one more day of work in North America. All right, teams, I will see you all soon. Thank you, Chris. I'm sure we'll talk some bullshit in our group chat shortly. Okay, everybody. See you all later. See you, Bray. Good to see your face. Talk to you soon. See ya.